What's up, Sushi Squad? We back in for some more Trove, and you've probably already seen the title. Yes, they have redeemed the Bard through a couple patches. We took a couple days off from the test server so that we could wait for the updates to end up coming out. Not to mention we ended up having the new Splendid Summer event going on to the live server. So, you know, kept a little bit busy with all of that stuff. And then I came back to the test server and was very pleasantly surprised that they have fixed the Bard. I don't really have any complaints. I'm really happy with where it is right now. The damage is on par with my Vanguard, if not higher, depending. But we'll get into that in a bit and talk about all the reworked stuff. There's going to be a couple more videos actually highlighting the Bard, because there's been not only a couple different patches talking about or changing the character, but we have like some new costumes that are available on the test server for more characters than just the Bard. But overall, I'm really pleasantly surprised. So obviously there was the first Bard patch, which we ended up talking about in another video. But then there was a couple others. So there was a change where they... I won't go into super detail. I'll link to it below if you guys care to read it. But basically they made it so that the Bard's ultimate ability will now last a full 30 seconds. I think before it lasted like 3 seconds or something ridiculously short, at the cost of the buff that you get from the ult is considerably lower. So the movement speed, for example, I'm pretty sure scaled up to like, I think it's scaled up like 60% or something like that. If maybe it was 50%. I'm not sure, but they changed it, and now it actually gives you 25% at base and 40% when you have your classroom ability, because the classroom basically makes the Bard's ultimate just scale a lot better. But the point is that now it lasts 30 seconds, which means that we can cast our ult and then use our Jubilant song to keep the movement speed buff. But you can see our movement speed itself is considerably lower because I have my fist weapon on the Vanguard because I was checking the new costume. I'll have another video highlighting that. Calm down. Okay, let's test this again. Sorry, guys. We'll check the real numbers of the movement speed, because I think before we were getting like... what are we getting now? 135, and before I think we were getting like 146, with the higher number being around like 186 to 200, I think, depending on when we had like, you know, Raptor Berserker or Aviar triggered, and then Trailblazing, and then triggered Pyro Disc, and I don't even know if I have a Pyro Disc on this guy. Yeah, I don't actually. Interesting. But also not. Anyways, they fixed a couple other issues with him. The song Crystal could stack multiple buffs, so that has been changed, so that now this, we mentioned this before in another video where we could do this and we would get the buff from ourselves and the crystal itself, which is not the case anymore. Now you just get the buff from one of them, so if there's other players around, they'll probably want to stand around your crystal so that they can get the continued buff, instead of you wandering around and, you know, having to try and build stacks and fight and stuff, and people just losing track of you, whatever. There was a couple other additional changes, but we don't need to get into that. Let's take a peek at the next patch notes. So this patch was actually on the 3rd, and it added buff icons for Jubilant, Peaceful, and Battle songs. So I guess like just applying the buff. Oh, there it is. So it shows it in the top corner now, which is nice. You know, at least now we kind of see what the buff is. Other players can end up having the benefit of it. Weird that it says it has a buff icon. That's literally a cooldown icon, it seems. It seems a little bit glitchy because we clearly don't have the movement speed. And yet, even the cooldown of it, yeah, clearly it's just messed up. Maybe that's one of the mods conflicting or something. I don't know. But either way, they messed it up. And then here's the big changes. So I really wanted to focus on this patch notes because it might have gone under some people's radar. It certainly went under mine. I was not expecting the Bard to be as scaled as he is now. And we will show a quick damage comparison a little later in the video, but they basically increased the damage of the crystal pop to 350%. So that's actually pretty good. Increased basic attack damage to, this is weird, 250%. 450% and 700%. So Basically, the only number you guys need to take from that is the 250%. The 450 and 700 is from having higher stacks with your ultimate ability, and I think it was like 600% before by having like a full 11 stack, which would be all the way up here, which is pretty crazy in order to end up getting these stacks. Like they take a long time to build up, which is a little bit gross. It seems like they might have fixed the icons themselves to be a little bit more consistently on top of other things in the environment. Maybe. Whoops, that's a left click actually. So basically at this point, now we would have the 11 stack 700%. So that's 44 mil right there. You can see. And then if we spend 5 stack, we also get the higher movement speed. So we're actually at 177 movement speed now. And then basically we would just keep building up stacks and stacks so that we just do more and more damage, right? But the point is you're trying to keep yourself at that sweet spot of having the 11 stack, and it just, I don't know, it's still not super duper practical, but because of the change with our damage number, just in general, we're doing a lot more damage with our basic attacks, and it's comparable to the Vanguard now, which is really, really nice. So reduce the chances of Nimble Dance appearing in the song list. So they changed it a bit so that the healing one doesn't show up as much, which is good because that one sucked. Nimble Dance and the Bard's basic attack can now be affected by attack speed. So that's the biggest change that makes this guy actually useful. Not even so much the damage number changes, it's more so the fact that his abilities get affected by attack speed, because apparently they didn't before, but we'll get into that in a bit because ooh, it's a nice change, dude. It's really, really smooth. So they updated a bunch of the Bard's animations so that his loot and cape stopped yeeting out into space, which is cool. Bardium can now be detected by a thumper. Mining Bardium grants experience for reliquaries. Added some costumes to the style store. So you go to the style menu and you can end up seeing there's a bunch of new costumes for the Bard. There's a Barb costume, Vanguard, Neo Ninja, and a Lancer costume. Now, the weird thing is, these costumes that we see for the Bard, these are separate from the Bard packs. Which means that you're gonna, like, so basically there's gonna be 2 packs when the Bard is available. There's gonna be a pack that is gonna be the equivalent of $30, but it sells for credits as far as I know, so free-to-play players can access this pack. And it's gonna give you the Bard as well as a couple of his crafted costumes. Or there's gonna be the $100 pack, which is gonna give you the Bard as well as all of his crafted costumes. These are not crafted costumes. These are specific to the store. They are worth credits, which means free-to-play players can grind them, which is cool. But they are completely separate from that $100 pack. However, the $100 pack does give you like 13,000 credits. So I'm assuming that you'll end up having enough to end up buying all these costumes, even if you get the $100 pack. I could be wrong because I failed to take a screenshot of these costumes with their original price, so I don't remember what it was. I'm sorry, because I kind of just saw them there and I was like, oh, do these work? Can I just click on it? I think it was like 1250 credits for the costumes or something, which as far as the credit value is concerned, that's a little under $10, so at least it's affordable, kind of. And like I said, if you buy that $100 pack, you should be able to buy all the costumes, so that's kind of neat. And then there was also another change that they ended up doing on the 4th, which Battlesong now applies a 30% buff or a 45% buff with your gem to physical and magic damage rather than attack speed. That makes that buff way better. Like, that actually makes it so that the Bard actually has a good support buff. You know, you might actually want to pop this guy into a party at the end game just so that you could be doing an extra 45% more damage with your party members while fighting a Leviathan. That would actually be useful. Like, I'm very, very surprised with the changes that they did to this guy, because it seems like the devs listened to our criticisms. Not only did they manage to make this character more viable towards a support, like he's actually pretty good as far as his supportive value now, but he also is just like actually a good speed farmer. So he's pretty good. He's overall really, really nice. I like the changes that they did with him. but they ended up, these are the big changes right here. So they made it so Singing Crystal activates a lot faster. It reduces movement speed instead of entirely blocking enemies while changing or casting it or something. I don't know. But ancient gears, blah blah blah. Okay, so not anything super stupendous. The biggest thing is that this guy scales off of attack speed now. So instead of the annoying 1 2 3 1 2 3 with his attacks, look at this. It's just consistent damage now. Thank you, Debs. Just a little golf clap for you guys, because you did a great job. And then the fact that his attacks scale off of attack speed means that his right click. Did you even see it? Instantaneous. The defensive buff that you get from it obviously isn't as good, but at least now it means we can do it and still do a bit of damage while we still have the buff around us. Really nice. And if we look at the damage without any buffs on our character, boop, we're doing 15 to 16 mil, which is comparable to my Vanguard. However, the point is that now that our other abilities take basically no wind-up time, our right click is doing consistent 12 mil, so that's just 12 mil passively that you can be doing while also getting invulnerability frames with it, which is nice. And then our number one, whoop, he just throws it down super duper quick, so we can keep attacking. I still wish that this animation was a little bit smoother, but you can throw it down and keep attacking, and it's decent. I don't know if it's better to throw down your number one for normal farming, not unless you were giving a buff to your teammates or something to try and get the movement speed, or just trying to get the damage buff. I wonder whether or not, like, you know, the Vanguard, or the Bard, I mean, sorry, gets the movement speed buff. I'm guessing it doesn't apply it to your teammates unless they're in the radius. It would be really nice if they could just tag this, get the buff, and then it lasts 30 seconds while they go off and do their own thing. That would actually make the support ability insanely good, and Trove would actually have its true first support character in the game, and I think that would be awesome if they ended up doing it that way. But I don't think that it does. It's literally just tied to, you know, standing in the radius, right? But anyways, so if we, you know, just start spamming all of our abilities, including our number one, that's basically how his gameplay is going to be now. And his number one ability does 22 mil. Yeah, 22 mil, which means that it can one-shot. These are enemies in U10, by the way. And overall, I gotta say, Game Ago has been doing a great job with what they've changed the classes to. So we've already seen some reworks to some of the classes since Game Ago has taken charge. You know, I think Draco was when Game Ago was around, and then there's the Tomb Raiser and the Chloromancer more recently, and now the Bard after his rework as well. And the thing that I really like that they're doing is they're making it so that basically all of your abilities actually serve a purpose. And I'm really happy to see that they made those changes to make the Bard's abilities all feel like they serve a purpose. Because the point is that how you're going to play this guy now is you're basically just holding your left click, spamming your right click on cooldown, just because of course it gives you the invulnerability frames, and it's up to you whether you want to be spamming your number one in between all of that. Because obviously you're losing attack based on throwing it, you're losing a little bit of attack animation based on the detonation of it. That I would like to see them change. I would like it so that, okay, throwing it down does an animation, cool, that makes sense. But blowing it up, that shouldn't take an animation. You should just press the button and then it just explodes. I think that that would make the star absolutely useful for DPS, like for damage, rather than what they probably want it to be used for, which is just buffs, you know, trying to give your team's movement speed and stuff like that. But the fact that we can now use all of our abilities and they all scale off of attack speed means that this guy is completely viable, which is great, because the thing that sucked about the Bard, sorry I keep saying Vanguard, is that he needed to be on par with the Vanguard, if not better, considering the fact that they're selling him as a much more expensive Vanguard. Like, he costs a lot more than the Vanguard does, but he's in a really good place right now. There's a couple tweaks that I would personally like to see with him, but if he released as is, it would be fine. It would be perfectly viable. You know, not necessarily the fastest, again, in terms of speed farming, just because of the changes that they made to his abilities. But the fact that they last for 30 seconds now means that it's a lot more consistent. It means that Bard is still going to end up being top 5 for sure in terms of speed farming, just because you are still getting more movement speed than you would on a mount, even with the Knight subclass ability, because Knight subclass ability gives you 125 movement speed, whereas if we're constantly using our ult, we're gaining 135 movement speed, and that is not including if you are a freak that actually tries to build up stacks amidst all of the chaos, so that you can end up, you know, getting a little bit more movement speed, just for the sake of using the 5 stack. So if I try to get another one going here, let's just use it right there, and we're getting 177 movement speed, so long as we have the second stack going, right? And I mean, obviously you're going to be spamming a lot more of your abilities anyway, so it is a lot more easily managed, especially just staying within that first range. It's just, as of right now, like you can see, I'm kind of wasting time. And I kind of keep having to do the animation just so that I can get it to trigger again. But it's perfectly viable and a lot more fun. Good job, devs. Thank you so much for the change. It's beautiful. And thank you guys for watching. So that'll probably cover it for today. Sorry if I prattled on about a few things, but I'm trying to get back into the flow of things of, you know, trying this character out. And I was just so blown away with how quickly they ended up making all of these very significant changes to how the Bard works. And I'm really, really excited if this is what he's going to end up being. Like I said, just little nitpicks. I would prefer it if the explosion effect didn't actually cause an animation on this guy. The heal buff, I don't even know if they need that in the game, honestly. But at least they ended up making managing his ult a lot more consistent, because you'll notice that in one of these stacks as well, we also just had an Epic Rift show up again, which the whole point is that the Epic Rift didn't show up very commonly when you were trying to build up stacks. So it's a really, really nice changes. Good job, devs. Good job. This is now an actual class you can use at the end game. And like I said too, if you end up using a full 5 stacks, or having your stacks at 11 rather, so that you end up having the ultimate damage on the Bard class, because as far as just support is concerned, I'm pretty sure all you really need to do is get up to a 5 stack, right? Let me see if I can end up doing this right here just real quick, because I don't think having any higher stacks is going to affect this buff. So this is going to end up giving you significantly more damage, as you can see. So we're at 400k magic damage now with the buff, obviously. And as that wears out, is that number going to change? Why has the number not changed? Maybe because the buffs themselves don't really reflect that and just keep saying that they're doing this? I don't know. Do we still have the buff? There's no way we still have the buff unless they glitched out this character. Because I don't think we should have 400k. Yeah, we're doing 19 mil now. What? Did it wear out? Okay, now it wore out. Okay, so the buffs that show up in the bottom or top left. Very interesting. So yeah, we're basically getting 60, 70k extra damage with this guy, and that's a buff that can apply to everybody in the party, which is great. And again, you only need to build up the 5 stacks initially. Now, the point of getting the 11 stack is it buffs the Bard's damage a lot. So if you're just using this guy as support, it's definitely a lot more viable, because you can build up to 5 stack and then just use your ult, and then bada bing, bada boom, you're done. But let's actually take a quick peek here. So we have 135 movement speed, and then we can see that the timer is still going in the top left. It does seem to be a little bit jank, but what I want to see is, now that the ult has gone away, yeah, we're still retaining that movement speed. So these, maybe they aren't glitched. Maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe the ult, it seems to last longer than the ult itself, and does exactly what I actually said earlier, where we just get the ult buff. So when does this actually wear out? It seems a little glitchy. I could be wrong. Yeah, there, it finally wore out. Dang, dude. So that means ideally what you could do is you pop this, and then everyone is going to end up being able to tag this and get the ult buff. That's insane, dude. Because it seems like it stays long after the actual ult animation. Crazy. this guy might be one of the best classes in the game. I'm not even kidding. The fact that these buffs do exactly what I hoped that they would. I mean, it still is a little bit jank with how the timers work and how it just kind of cycles them back and forth over and over. But this is a good character. This is actually Trove's first support class. And it's actually a viable one. I'm shocked. I'm flabbergasted. I'm sorry this video rambled on for so long, but I'm just so taken aback because I thought it was glitched. I didn't know that we still actually carried the buff long after the song was there, because it doesn't really mention that in the patch notes. I mean, obviously it mentions that we end up keeping the buff for 30 seconds, but wow. A+ for effort, devs, because that means that we can actually get all of the buffs going consistently. Like if we build up stacks here, that means we could get this healing buff going, and then we could get our speed buff going, and then if we built up even more stacks, we could actually get our attack damage buff going at the same time. Obviously the heal doesn't seem to be as crazy. It's still kind of more useless ability because heals nearby allies and buffs them with life gain when dealing damage, so it gives you life steal, so that's not entirely useless. Anyways, I don't mean to ramble. I'm really excited at these changes. I can't believe how good this is. This is so much better than what I expected, and that's a nice pleasant surprise, because I honestly, guys, was not super duper hyped about the Bard just because he didn't really seem that good. But after these changes, I mean, this guy's top tier. I love him, and I can't wait to actually play this on the live server, dude. That is awesome. So I'll definitely have some other videos that show his costumes and talk about other things about him, but today we were specifically focusing on the rework, the changes, and this does not necessarily mean that they can't end up changing a couple things before he goes live. I still personally, I like that animation, that's fine. That explosion effect, I still feel is a little too interrupting for the flow of the character. Maybe if he ended up resetting back to his normal animation a little bit quicker, but I mean, that's just me. I don't know if the devs are even listening to these videos, but thanks for watching, gamers. Really appreciate it. Smash like, sub for more, buy the merch you want, support the channel, and have a great day. Sign on and stay epic, everybody.